Kuti is a singer and a musician, but he's more popularly known as the son of Afrobeat pioneer and activist Fela Anikulapo Kuti, aka Fela. Let me shed a little light. Fela was a musician, but he was even more importantly known as an activist, a political activist who used his music as a tool to expose the ills and the decay in governance. As a result of his activism, Fela faced plenty of attacks by the then junta military government of Nigeria. It was so bad that his mother was even murdered. She was thrown out of the second floor of a story building to her death by men in uniform. The great Fela Anikulapo Kuti had about 7 kids. And SEUN Kuti is the youngest son of them all. So in the crazy week that was, we saw SEUN Kuti right on the 3rd Mainland Bridge in Lagos in a very heated altercation with a policeman. And in that video, SEUN was photographed live. He was physically assaulting and verbally abusing a uniformed personnel. And we must admit that the policeman made no single attempt to retaliate. The officer remained calm, composed, chopping the slaps with full respect, dignity, utmost humility, and in good faith. And when this video made it out, all hell was let loose. SEUN Kuti was carpeted completely for, violating a policeman, disrespecting an officer of the law, daring to beat up a uniformed personnel. He was lambasted. Some people condemned SEUN's action. They're like, yes, every day we complain about police brutality, but please, when we see civilian brutality, let us talk true. Let us stop supporting bad things. They were like, SEUN was clearly in the wrong for raising his hand against the uniformed policeman, and that we should be just and fair and equitable enough to say it when we see it. For the other set of people, they threw their weight solemnly, firmly, completely behind SEUN. They contend that civilians have constantly been abused and degraded by men in uniform, and they relished the sight of seeing them get a dose of their own medicine. They argued that given the excesses usually demonstrated by policemen, we never can tell what that policeman would have done to have warranted SEUN to give him all those hot slaps. And it was such a coincidence that immediately, like the next day after SEUN's case, there was this very gross and horrible video of some group of policemen assaulting a civilian, like a bike rider. He was totally beaten up on the streets by a policeman. And people were like, you see what I'm talking about? You see why you should show this man no mercy? You see why that policeman deserves to have gotten what he got from SEUN Kuti? So the question then arose, what exactly did this policeman actually do to deserve those hot, thunderous, eye-blinding slaps from SEUN Kuti? Well, SEUN has given his own side of the story through an official statement released by his manager. Let us hear it. Ayo Moses, SEUN's manager, said, on this said day, SEUN was driving with his family on the 3rd Mainland Bridge when he was suddenly hit from behind by a police truck being driven by an officer who was reportedly drunk. This act from the officer led SEUN's daughter into sudden shock as she was visibly shaken by the heat. So this made SEUN pursue the truck, double-crossed it, and forced it to a stop. And when the policeman got down from the truck, instead of apologizing, he was arguing with SEUN, which provoked him to slap the officer. People should realize that men in uniforms also provoke civilians. Immunity is no excuse for impunity. So guys, what do you think about SEUN's version of what happened? Do you think that this is enough justification for this action of SEUN? Do you think that what the policeman did was actually enough for SEUN to have double-crossed the police vehicle and began beating up the policeman? Or do you think that SEUN was just being heady and acting above the law because of the kind of family he's coming from?
Instagram can't explain. You know how many police I don't tear slap? They'll say because you be Fela pikin. It doesn't matter because Jesus be God pikin if he die for you. You must know who you are before you make your move. So I make my move from where I did because I know who I am. That's how I must make my move.
Guys, this battle, enmity, and overall beef between civilians and the police was then again reopened. Yet this underlying hatred that exists between civilians and men in uniform in your country? Speak to us in the comment section. Is police brutality really a thing where you come from? Or not only we waka come? Let us know what the situation is like in your country. Well, after this video made it out, the Inspector General of Police immediately ordered the arrest and prosecution of SEUN Kuti. And on Monday the 15th of May, 2 days after that assault, SEUN Kuti officially turned himself in. But why was he handcuffed again? What does the law say about constraining and restraining people with handcuffs and chains? What did the law say? Let me tell you. Now, a suspect to a crime is deemed innocent and should not be handcuffed, bound, or restrained by the police, except these. Number 1, where there is violence or an attempt to escape. 2, when it is necessary for the safety of that suspect. And 3, upon a court order. So a lot of people have condemned why the police had to have SEUN in bounds. So SEUN has now been arraigned before a magistrate court sitting in Yaba, Lagos. He has been charged with the offenses of assaulting an inspector, driving dangerously, and deliberately blocking a moving police vehicle. This, of course, is a felony, and if convicted on all of them, can attract up to 5 years jail term. He has been granted bail, which will kick effect after 4 days due to some interrogation, blah 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 blah. So he's going to remain in police custody for the next 4 days, and then his bail will kick off. And he was granted bail in the sum of 1 million naira, 2 reasonable sureties, and a 3-year tax payment receipt, which is verifiable. And one of these sureties must have a landed property within the jurisdiction of the courts. Very stringent bail conditions. So the services of renowned human rights lawyer and activist Femi Falana, and the trial has begun. So let us see how this ends. I'm going to keep you updated as it goes. What do you think this is going to end at? Do you think that these charges will be dropped and it's going to end in, okay, offer a public apology, let us mend things? Or do you think that this matter will go to court and SEUN would actually be sentenced to prison? Do let me know what you think about all of this, the assault. Is it justifiable? Do you support SEUN, or do you condemn his actions? Do you think that justice should be tampered mercifully towards him, given that he has a long history of, uniformed men assaulting and killing his family members? So possibly maybe he nurses some kind of anger or bitterness towards them. Or do you think that he has contravened the law and he should face punishment? What do you think about this SEUN Kuti situation? Drop your opinions down in the comment section.